Okay, today we're going to go on to section 6.4, solving absolute value equations. Now, for the first part of the lesson, we're just going to talk about solving the equations, not the inequalities. And so as you glance at the equation that we have here, really just starting off reminding you what absolute value is. Remember, the absolute value is the distance from zero. And so as you talk about absolute value, it's always going to be positive because distance is always positive. And so as we look at this, the absolute value of x equals 8. Now, there's two possible answers here. As you think about this, obviously, the absolute value of 8, in other words, the distance from 0 that the point 8 is, that's going to be 8. But there's not just one answer, there's another answer out there as well. The absolute value of negative 8. If you think about how far away from 0 negative 8 is, that is also 8 away. And so there are two answers to this problem. X could be equal to 8 or negative 8. And so it's going to make it a little tricky as we start solving some of our multi-step absolute value equations here. We have to start thinking about how we're going to do this. And so you're going to have a problem that's going to look similar to what you've had before. 2x minus 7 minus 5 equals 4. And we used to do that. The thing that's going to be different is they're going to throw this in there and call that the absolute value of 2x minus 7 minus 5 equals 4. Now, this is our focus right here, is the absolute value. What we want to do is we want to get that all by itself. So I want to go ahead and add 5 to both sides because I want to get that absolute value of 2x minus 7 all by itself. So as I look at that, I have the absolute value of 2x minus 7 is equal to 9. Now, remember that absolute value. The absolute value of 2x minus 7, it would work if the 2x minus 7 came out to equal 9. And it would also work if the 2x minus 7 came out to equal negative 9. If either one of those situations happened, we'd be okay. We'd have that answer of 9. And so if this 2x minus 7 equals 9, then the absolute value of 9 is 9. If the 2x minus 7 equals negative 9, well, then the absolute value of negative 9 also equals 9. And so we want to look at both situations happening. Now, one misconception is that both of these are going to equal the same number and just be opposites. And so one misconception is that when I solve this, and I find that x equals 8, some people will just come over here and say, so x equals 8 or x equals negative 8. But watch this, it's not that easy. If I add 7 to both sides here, be careful with your addition here. Negative 9 plus 7 is actually negative 2. When I divide by 2, I get x equals negative 1. And so my answers are x equals 8 or x equals negative 1. So there's two answers. X is either 8 or x is equal to negative 1. Now tomorrow we'll move on to working with inequalities and actually seeing how those come in. And so tomorrow will be a little bit more difficult in the sense that it'll be inequalities, but first we want to make sure we practice with these problems here to make sure we understand how to do those. Okay, here's another problem here, and I encourage you to take a look at this and try to do it on your own first, knowing that the answers aren't going to come out nicely. So I encourage you to kind of pause this and on a piece of scratch paper, go through this and try to do it on your own. And so go ahead and do that now while I draw just a little piece of bacon over here, just to kind of get us motivated and thinking on the right track. Let's make sure our minds are always on the sweet, succulent flavor of bacon, that there's the kind of heat coming from it and the deliciousness coming from it. So take a moment, do this problem on your own, and then check back with me. Here we go on actually working it. The first thing that we have to remember is that we want to get the absolute value by itself. And so the first thing we want to do here is we got to get rid of this subtracting 4. To do that, I go ahead and add 4. And so if you don't have the absolute value all by itself, make sure you do that first. Now, once you have the absolute value all by itself, and be careful not to think this is 17 here. Make sure you know those are absolute value bars. After you get the absolute value all by itself, make sure then we know that we're looking for 7 minus 4x to either equal positive 18, or we're looking for 7 minus 4x to equal negative 18. It could either equal either one and we'd be okay here. So I subtract 7 from both sides. Don't forget that you have negative 4x there. Divide by negative 4. If this was an inequality, remember we would flip that inequality here, but it's an equal sign, so we just leave it. And then that goes in there 2 full times, so that's going to be negative 2 and 3 4s because there's 3 left over to get up to 11. Here, notice the steps are the same, but because that is negative 18, this goes to negative 25. When I divide by my negative 4, again, when you divide by negative, I would flip that if that was an inequality. It is not, though. It's just equals. Negative divided by negative is a positive. That goes in there 6 full times, and then there's 1 left over. Now, if you're doing this on the calculator, you would get an answer like 6.25, and over here you would have got an answer like negative 2.75, and that'd be okay. So your two answers, x is equal to negative 2.75 or 6.25. So it's a nice check to see how you're doing on this. And remember, guys, before you go, that bacon is awesome. And just curious, how fast does a zebra have to run before it turns gray?